Now I'm going to talk to you today about buttonholes. Now you see these two small ones at the bottom? They've been done by working two stitches together and doing a yarn over. One of them on the wrong side of the work and one of them on the right side of the work. I decided they were a bit small. So these ones up here have been done by casting off the two middle stitches and then casting on two stitches further up. Now there is a difference between this buttonhole and that one, and you can see the difference particularly by how the ribbing goes on after the buttonhole. This one's a bit of a mess and this one goes very smoothly on, and that's because I did the casting on differently. But I'll show you both because that's probably a slightly tougher, stronger top than this one, but I think this one looks better, and I'll show you both ways of doing it. This is the front of the work, and while with the ribbing it doesn't make any difference whether you have a front or a back, once you start putting the buttonholes in it does make a difference. If I show you the back of this piece of work, where I've done the buttonholes at the bottom here, you see how the knit stitch sort of squeezes off to the side, and you don't notice it on the front because the hole has been done on the purls. Okay, and with these ones you've got more of a, where you've done the casting off it's more obvious on the back. Again, it's not hugely different, but I think the fronts look better. So this first one I worked on the back of the work, so I will now show you how I did that. I work with a knit one purl one rib to the middle. I've got 12 stitches here, so that's 5 stitches, then I need to think about what I'm doing. I'm going to purl those two together because the next stitch is a purl. Then I do a yarn over. Now, do you see what I did with my yarn over was to take the yarn from the front to the back and then bring it to the front because the next stitch is a purl. So there's my yarn over and there's my buttonhole, and then I can just carry on working my rib along. When I come back and get to that yarn over, you'll see what I have to do with it. Right, there's my yarn over. I've got knit, purl, knit, so it's a purl that I need to do, and I just work it in the normal manner as a purl. Then I can knit the next one and carry on with my rib. I've done a couple of rows. This is the right side of the work, and you see there's a nice small neat buttonhole. Now oftentimes you'll find that when you do the second buttonhole you're working on the other side of the work. An odd number of rows later you do a second buttonhole. So I'm going to work an odd number of rows and then do a buttonhole starting on the right side of the work. Okay, there's my first buttonhole, and this is a front row. I've started that one on a back row. This is a front row, and I'll show you how to do exactly the same kind of a buttonhole but on the other row. So again we work to the middle, only because I've got an even number of stitches and my buttonhole is only over one stitch, I'm going to have to do it the other way round. Now if you remember, what I did before was I purled two together and then I did a yarn over. This time around I'm going to do the yarn over first and then I'm going to knit two together because I'm on the other side of the work, and I'm going to do my yarn over backwards because I'm going to knit these two together and I want the yarn over to go right round. So where I did my yarn over like that and then purled them previously, I put the yarn over the other way round because I'm going to knit those two together. And that leaves me a nice little buttonhole there. And then when I come back on the other row, when I get to the yarn over, it's a knit. Now, you need to knit into the back of it in order to keep it open. Because if you knit into the front, it'll just close the whole thing up and you won't have a buttonhole. So knit into the back of it like that, and then carry on with your purl one, knit one for the rib. And there you see, that's the back. And you can see how it's going off. But if I look at it on the front, you've got the next buttonhole straight above the first one. But that was worked from the front of the work rather than the back. Now, those buttonholes aren't big enough for the buttons that I might want to put. So I'm now going to knit a few more rows and then show you how to make buttonholes by casting off a couple of stitches in the middle of the row and then casting them back on. Now, I'm about to work a front row and I'm going to cast off the middle two stitches of my 12 stitches. So I knit along, or rather I knit, purl, I rib along for 5. I've got to cast off those 2 stitches. So I'll work the next one and work the 7th one and pull the 6th one over the 7th, work the 8th one and pull the 7th one out. I don't know what number it is now. But anyway, I've cast off my 2 stitches and I work to the end of the row. And then I come back and work to the gap. Now, in the knitting patterns that you read, it will say cast on 2 stitches when you come back like this. Now, in order to cast on in the normal sort of chain cast on way, you would need to turn the work around and cast on. So let me do that. 1 stitch and 2 stitches. Then you need to turn the work back around because you're actually heading in this direction, and carry on working, and the next stitch is a purl. Okay, but I discovered that that is my second one from down here. I don't think it's as nice a top as this way of casting on. So that's the ordinary chain cast on. You have to turn the work around, cast on your 2 stitches and then turn the work back and carry on with the row. I'll show you in a second what I do, which is something I learnt from machine knitting. It's called an E-wrap cast on, and I think it makes a nicer edge to carry on with. You see this mess? When you come back on the first row after you've done the casting on, it's all a little awkward and you need to be careful to keep the knit one, purl one going in the right order. So that's a knit, this one must be a purl, and that's a knit, and that's a purl, before we settle back down to what's clear. Now, I'm going to do the casting off in the middle of this row. So again, I work along 5 of my 12 stitches, then I need to purl the 6th, knit the 7th, and pull the 6th over the 7th, purl the 8th, and bring the 7th over the 8th, and then carry on working to the end of the row. That gives me my hole in the middle. Now on my way back I'm going to do what I please to call an E-wrap cast on, which means that you don't have to turn it around. We come here and we just loop the yarn on like that. Now I'm going to do that again because it takes me a little while to work out how to do it each time. You see how I've got the yarn held there? Well, I take my needle and I pick up the back and pull it through and drop it off, so that I've just got, it looks like a letter E going round the needle. And then I do it again, pick it up from the back and bring it through. And that gives me 2 stitches that are cast on in the way I'm going. And then I can carry on and work the rest of the row. When you come back and work the other way, through those E-wrap casts on, again it's a question of keeping the rib right, and it will just flow through. So that's a knit, which means that first one is a purl, gently does it, and the second one is a knit, and then we're back to the purl. And there we are with a buttonhole with, in my humble opinion, a neater top. Again, I'll do a couple more rows so that you can see it away from the needle. And there you have it, how to make 1-stitch and 2-stitch buttonholes.